Hello, I'm James Cridland, the radio futurologist, and this is Radioland, my Radio Trends newsletter for the 1st of March 2026. My goodness. And we're sponsored by RSS.com, podcast hosting that's actually free. Unlimited episodes, unlimited storage. You can get started today at rss.com and learn more about their API, which will make it super easy to get audio straight out of your playout system and straight into a podcast. In the UK, Radio Today has reported that media regulator Ofcom is to require local analogue radio licences in the UK to air local news between 6 in the morning and 7 in the evening weekdays, and also to air local news over weekends as well. The regulator says this local news must consist of or include some news which has been locally gathered by journalists physically present in the relevant areas. Most stations have 1 year to comply. Now, most local analogue radio licences in the UK actually carry national programming these days, or nation programming, i.e. programming for Wales or Scotland or Northern Ireland. And that is from the likes of Global's Heart, Capital or Smooth, Bowers Hits Radio or Greatest Hits Radio, or KISS, I guess, or Nation Broadcasting's Nation Radio. And these stations do carry local news and weather and advertising, but this rule is potentially onerous for broadcasters. Ofcom estimate it'll cost the industry an additional $450,000 a year. Now, as a broadcaster, if you don't fancy the idea of paying at least 2 journalists' salaries as news gatherers for each analogue licence, then you do have another option available to you, and that option is to simply hand back your licence. And that's not as ridiculous as it might seem, because in total only 25% of all UK radio is listened to on AM/FM anymore. The rest is through DAB or online, and while some local stations will see more listening share through analogue, that figure will only go down. Now, in the UK, appearance on your local DAB multiplex, which gets 42% of all radio listening, isn't contingent on you owning an analogue licence in the area, so you can just hand your analogue licence back with no real penalty. And many AM services have already been, and Ofcom hasn't re-advertised any licences who have. Indeed, last year, Nation Radio reacted to Ofcom's consultation about local news provision by surrendering their Ceredigion licence in Wales. So just weeks after the UK government announced a review into continued FM and AM broadcasting in the UK, it would seem that stronger regulation might be hastening analogue switch-off in the country. In the US, a historic moment. Podcasts are now bigger than spoken word radio. So says Edison Research at SSRS from its share of ear study. The graph, which I reproduced in Pod News on Friday, shows a significant drop in radio's share of spoken word audio time over the last 10 years. And 2025 is the year when podcasting finally overtook radio. 25% of all daily audio time in the US is spent with spoken word audio, according to the research company, which does suggest that the vast majority of listening is to music. But as you'll hear in my Radio Days Europe speech, radio has less of a unique selling proposition for music than spoken word. Edison Research also publishes The Infinite Dial, which is to be presented in a webinar on Thursday, March the 12th at 2 p.m. Eastern. And I am thrilled once more to be co-presenting that, along with VP of Edison Research at SSRS, Megan Lazovic. Please join us. It's free. There's a link that you'll find in my newsletter. It's the research that gives us the big number about podcasting, which is how many people listen in the US. But there's plenty more as well. Besides, this year, never before seen data on AI usage as well. Please, it would be excellent to see you on the webinar in a couple of weeks' time. Back in the UK, the Radio Academy, where I was once a trustee, has become the Audio Academy, and it's really difficult to report on that because it's both simultaneously the right change, I believe, but also hard to see it as good news for radio, isn't it? Now to Australia. Australian radio network ARN, the home of Kyle and Jackie O, released its financial results. Revenue is down 10% on the year, profit down 30%. More job cuts have been announced. Details are to follow. Already people have been announced as leaving the organisation. The current market cap of the whole company is 109.5 million Australian dollars. That's down 45% in the last year. And just to put it into context, $109 million is roughly half the value of Kyle and Jackie O's contract. Now, the Kyle and Jackie O effect, how they messed up the radio industry, is an article on a New to Me radio website. It's called Com Radio Australia, not to be confused with the CRA. It's mostly RSS-driven links elsewhere, but does carry its own articles as well. And it is arguing that the show is responsible for significant cost-cutting throughout ARN. Jackie O was off all last week after a bad argument on the air, and Radio Info reports that Kyle didn't bother coming in on Thursday either. He was apparently unwell. It's the end of the first survey for Australian radio ratings. Numbers for these 6 weeks, which unusually aren't merged with a previous survey's data, come out on March the 19th. It will be a fascinating survey to have a look at. Another week, and the ACMA, by the way, the world's weakest media regulator, still hasn't made a decision about the licence conditions for the Kyle and Jackie O show. Do we make podcasts that are essentially television, or do we pursue and deepen our relationship with sound and its imaginative possibilities? Siobhan McHugh spoke at the Radio and Audio Studies Symposium last month in a talk called Viva the Narrative Podcast, the Case Against Video. You can read the full speech in Pod News. I've linked to that today, or you can watch the full keynote as well on YouTube. It's definitely worth reading with a radio hat on as well. And in podcasts, talking about podcasts, which we kind of were, in Wade Kingsley's The Quarter Hour podcast, we hear from the Australian music industry. Australia has a music quota, much like Canada or France. Annabelle Hurd is both CEO of the Australian Recording Industry Association and of rights holder PPCA. And she says good things about radio, but also suggests that radio has a responsibility to promote local music. I'm assuming, by the way, that my conversation with Stingray's Steve Jones at Radio Days Europe will be touching on Canadian content, incidentally. There'll be a lot of talk about TuneIn, which Stingray now own. Meanwhile, the Media Club with Matt Deegan talks about more government regulation in the UK for television. Clive Dickens from Meliora comes in to talk more AI. And a reminder that, yes, this is also obviously a podcast. It's called Radioland, and it's available wherever you get your podcasts, but you know this already, and I shouldn't have read this bit out. But as I say in the newsletter, it's not very edited, is it? Random radio ratings corner now, and from the Netherlands I link to the annual report from trade organisation Audify, which shows audio ad revenue and radio listening and radio platforms. Here are two numbers for you. Radio listening in the Netherlands around 89% weekly reach. Radio platforms, only 28% of total hours is spent listening to FM. Online, much, much bigger than DAB in that country. No radio listening at all is listed for AM. And thank you to John McDermott, who bought me 3 coffees, yay, to thank me for the new podcasts trailer feed. You'll find that at newpodcasts.net. That's very kind of you, John. So thank you for that. Where am I speaking next? I'll tell you. I'm speaking at Radio Days Europe in Latvia in mid-March. I'm flying via Hong Kong, so I should be okay. Woe betide anybody, Wade Kingsley, who's flying via via somewhere else, like Singapore is probably okay. But Doha, yeah, no. Dubai, yeah, no. So that's going to be fun, isn't it? But anyway, that's all exciting. I will be talking about the future of audio. They have just told me, but it's not yet on the website. They have just told me that there's been a room change. And I'm now a bit nervous because it sounds as if I've got the big room. Anyway, if that's true, then I will see you first thing on Tuesday. And that'll be fun, won't it? The night after the big party. I'm going to have to up my game and, start writing it soon. That'll be fun. But anyway, I am talking about what the future of radio is, obviously, how we'll listen on what devices, how we can make our output truly unique, and how we do that in a resource-efficient way. You won't agree with much of it, so come along. That'd be good. I'm also talking with Steve Jones of Stingray about TuneIn, about Canadian radio, and lots more. Please join me for that too. And I'll be speaking at the podcast show in London, May the 20th to the 21st, keynoting at that event, as well as recording a Pod News Weekly review. If you're a Radioland reader, then email me if you want some money off. It's not much, but, it's a pint of beer or whatever. Then very happy to send you a super secret code for that. And thank you to our many supporters, including Marty from New York, Gavin Watson, Greg Strassel, Sam Phelps, Richard Hilton, Emma Gibbs, Jocelyn Abbey, and James Masterton for being regular supporters. This is the bit of the podcast where I then have to type in radioland.email so I can actually get to see the other sponsors who are kind enough to appear. Who shall we mention this time round? Studio, obviously, Meliora, Radio Today, hooray, and Soma FM. There you go. If you would like to support my work in any way, please do. You can buy me a coffee, you can become a member to give regularly, or just give a one-off coffee, or 5 if you want. Buymeacoffee.com/James Cridland is where to go. And my website's got more details about who I am, what I do, and whether I can help you further. Radioland.email is a nice way to find that. That's radioland.email. And until next time, keep listening.